Welcome to the Costa Property Podcast, the podcast that turns your dreams of owning a piece of paradise on the Costa del Sol into reality. I'm Warner Laurie, and I'm joined by my co-host and wife, Sandra Laurie.
Join us as we embark on navigating the ins and outs of real estate and relocation to this beautiful region.
We're not just about market trends, we're about sharing real-life experiences, because we know the struggle firsthand and I've helped many people navigate this challenge also.
If you're dreaming of your perfect Costa del Sol home and want to get real, no-frills, expert advice, then you're absolutely in the right place. Join us each week as we share honest insights and information that will guide your journey. Welcome to another episode of the Costa Property Podcast. We are joined by an incredible special guest today who I am very excited to introduce you to. And today we'll be talking all about styling your home and decorating your dream home after you've made that purchase. So keeping that in mind, the Spanish word of the day today is muebles. And muebles in Spanish actually means furniture. So it's common whether you've found your perfect Spanish dream home or you are just in the research stages. The chances are that you will have thought about decorating your new home and how you want it to look and feel on the inside. So how do you go about it and where can you find all of this inspiration? This is exactly why we have invited the fabulous Joanne from Jojo House Styling and Staging to share with us her top tips for styling your dream home in the sun with practicality and of course, style. So Jo, thank you very, very, very much for joining us today. I know you're an incredibly busy lady, so I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to our listeners. So Jo, before we kick into all of the amazing tips and tricks that you're going to share with us today, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I'm Jo Webber. So I've got an interior design business called Jojo House Styling and Staging. I'm the main interior designer in the business, and I also have an online retail furnishings and accessories business to go with that.
Amazing, amazing. And tell us a little bit about you. Where are you based? I know you're UK based.
I'm UK based. I live in Northumberland. The business is based in Northumberland, and I probably cover from the Scottish borders down to Teesside area, but I also do remote.
Yes, of course.
Northumberland, gorgeous part of the UK.
Fabulous, fabulous. And tell us a little bit about how you stumbled across your passion. So how did you find your way into the world of interior designing, styling, supporting your clients?
So that's an interesting question. I've always, from I was in my teens with my first house, had a passion for having my home the best it can possibly be. Not always with a lot of money, I understand. So lots of pieces of her Facebook Marketplace, etc., etc. And that passion never left us until I got a little bit, it still hasn't, to be honest. And then I thought, you know what, you could do something with this. Everybody used to say, oh my God, you've got such an eye for this. You could do amazing with this. And I thought, you know what, why not? Let's do it. And I've had some amazing reviews of clients. It's just a passion. I'm following my dream doing it. It's just, it's soul lighting, Sandra.
I love that word. And I think we share a little bit of a common interest there around houses. Like, I don't know about you, but when I go in and I see a new home, like particularly one that we might be selling to a client, like I actually get goosebumps. I get really excited by it. It's almost like it is soul lighting. It's, as you say, you know, it just lights you up. And I'm always really curious to see what people have done with their homes once we go back, maybe after a period of time if they've purchased. So it's a great space to be in. And I can imagine you get to use a lot of your creative energy when you're dealing with your clients. So I love that. Soul lighting. I love that word. Okay, so we're going to dive straight into it then. What our listeners are really, really, really interested in, and when we're talking to our clients, particularly after they've purchased a home, they're always concerned about where should they start. So tell us about, from your perspective, where should people start? Is it best to pick an overall colour theme? Should they start room by room? You know, where should we begin?
Yeah, so I would decorate one room at a time. It's important to have one project that I'm almost fully dedicated to before moving on with another. And I think a really important point here is to have a completion date in mind. When you start with one room, you've always got to have the rest of the house in mind, right? So you've got a cohesive flow of colour and style throughout the whole house. And then I would also start with the areas that we're going to use the most. So the ones for the visitors will see. And I'm thinking, living room, your kitchen, your bathroom. And then once they're done and ready, I would move on to the more intimate spaces like the bedroom and any home offices and things like that. I tend to use, Sandra, a simple 6-point plan, right, when I'm designing. First off, what's the purpose of the room, right? What we're using the room for? What's the vibe you want to create in that room? And how will you use the space? Then once you've got the answer to that, I would move on to a colour palette. What's your favourite colour palette? But it needs to remember to tie in all the rooms. So whatever colour you do, tie them in. And then that'll keep some consistency throughout. And once I've decided on the room, I suppose my key inspiration comes from the most important piece in the room, sort of the anchor or the inspirational piece. Now, it could be a piece of furniture that you absolutely adore, makes them especially. Could be a rug, could be a sofa you just purchased, and you really don't want to lose that. So that's the sort of inspiration for everything else around the room. And then I would use colours that blend with that, right? You don't need everything to match perfectly, right? As long as you've got a cohesive flow around the whole, they don't need to be perfectly matched. And then, of course, you've got arranging your furniture. This is my favourite part. But it's got to be in a way that maximises your space, but more importantly, gives you the functionality. And then once your furnishing's in place, of course, you add your cushions and your accessories. And that's what really gives the biggest impact when it brings it all together.
I really like your structured approach with your 6 points. I think even for somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience when it comes to interior design, I feel that's really practical to follow.
Yeah.
And I think what you mentioned at the beginning around, just break it down, take it one room at a time. I love that because I've just finished renovating and redecorating my own new home over here, and it can feel really overwhelming, right? Like really daunting in the sense that, if you do have, 6 or 5 rooms, whatever it is to decorate, that can feel like a mammoth task. So just taking it one step at a time, starting with, as you say, the rooms the communal spaces that you'll begin with, because I think we forget that then when visitors are coming over, we do feel like, we want to have it finished. We want to have everything done. Starting with those communal spaces, that's great advice.
Before we move on, I just wanted to mention this. So from a colour perspective, Spain being clearly on the Mediterranean, you've got these amazing neutrals, right? That will go with any piece or anchor or your inspirational piece. And then you've got a terracotta, a reddish brown to go with all these neutrals. How wonderful. And then the olive green. Some of the colours you can use that looks superb in the med. That blue, matching the sea in the sky. I just think, how exciting.
I'm visualising lovely anchor pieces now with that aquamarine view in a lovely neutral living room as you're describing that. That's amazing. Amazing. But when it comes to the practicalities, Joe, like a lot of our listeners are coming from colder climates, maybe Northern Europe where it's freezing, the UK, Ireland, Scotland, where, it's really cold. And then they have to move over to a climate where the primary focus becomes around how do we keep everything cool? How do we keep things nice and cool, particularly in the summer months where, it's getting really hot. It's going to be in the high 30s. What would your advice be around that?
Yeah. So interestingly, there's lots of easy practical tips, such as close your blinds and your shades during the day, right? Keep the house as cool as possible during the day. Close off any unused rooms, right? So if you're not using your living room because you're outside on this wonderful Spanish sunshine, then close your living rooms off. Keep the shades closed. But in the evening, open them, and then you get some nice airflow coming through in the evening. I think that's probably, from a practicality point of view, the most you can do. From a colour perspective, of course, dark colours such as black deep shades, they'll absorb the light and therefore the heat. So almost if you stayed with light neutrals and pastels, you would benefit from that natural reflection. But particularly for outside furnishings, if you select rustic, right, given the sun damage is going to come, it's only going to add interest to the wooden rustic furnishings that you use outside. So I think there's something around selecting wisely for outside as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting to think about, because what you said there around the darker tones, that's not necessarily something I would have naturally thought about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's quite a simple way to, if you go outside with a black jumper on, you're going to be a bit hotter than if you had a white t-shirt on.
So keep it light and really focus on those neutral, flowy tones. And I think another thing that always comes front to mind with people, particularly when they start decorating, especially if they've not bought something new where it's all shiny and lovely and you walk into a blank canvas, if it's like a resale property that has a little bit of a renovation, they're often worried about costs and budgeting and, how to approach that, particularly if you've just spent your small fortune buying your dream property, then you have to take on this task of renovating. Obviously, it can be a concern or a worry. But from your perspective and your experience, when it comes to budgeting, do you have any top tips that people should think about when it comes to, I guess, styling effectively? And also, what would you say maybe they could avoid? What kind of traps or pitfalls do you see people fall into?
Yeah. So budgeting for designing whole properties is daunting, right? It's a daunting prospect. And how would you spend actually depends on what you have to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're buying, you may find that the flooring's perfect, you don't need to do anything with that. So it depends on what you've got to work with. The type and scale of a space is really the most important element to determine your budget. So clearly a 1-bedroom apartment versus a 4-bedroom villa, etc. The scale and how far you want to go determines the cost of it. Regardless of the style you use, the materials are going to make the biggest difference to the budget. So the costs of the materials clearly is key. What I would do is research your fixtures and furniture costs, so you know how much to allocate to those from your budget. Research the labour costs in the area, because you could get a nasty surprise with that. So labour costs, materials, furnishing, fixtures. Do your research, really estimate what that's going to be. And of course, good decor comes with different price tags, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So control is really important. Set a limit of how much you're willing to spend on each area and stick to your budget as far as you possibly can. If you keep those principles in mind, that should really help.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think also as well, people have like a misconception that they need to spend a fortune. But, often you find very similar products in...
Oh, absolutely. IKEA.
Yeah, exactly.
IKEA Malaga. Love it.
It is. It's amazing. And especially on the Costa del Sol here, there's amazing bespoke interior design stores, very Scandinavian designs, beautiful finishes. But the reality is these are not always in everybody's budget. But what I've started to see recently through my own scouring about is sometimes even somewhere like Primark or, as you say, IKEA, you can find very similar pieces. Obviously, they're not going to be exactly the same, but very similar for maybe the look and the kind of style that you want to create. So when it comes then to like inspiration for the styling of your home, how should people, get started with that? How should they create their inspiration, their vibe?
So, there's some amazing places to just find inspiration, right? Do you help with the research? So magazines, home magazines, or, I've always got a stack on my coffee tables, but the summer editions are going to be valuable, right? Then you've got Pinterest. If you go social media, you've got Pinterest. That's the visual discovery. It's a treasure trove of ideas and opportunities. And you actually see images that resonate with your style. And then, of course, you've got Instagram. You follow interior designers. The masses of images and tips are from Instagram and Facebook. And then, of course, there's hotels, right? Luxury boutique hotels. We're going to get some great ideas from that you can translate into your own property. And then design shows. One of my favourite, it's on Netflix, so I'm sure it's available, is Dream Home Makeover. I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I think where she operates in the environment she operates and where she works from is probably translates nicely to the med.
Yeah.
And I think that I love that show. And of course, you've got furniture stores. There's nothing stopping you going into these high-end furniture stores and looking around, see how they setting that, how they're displaying that items and then replicating it in your home. I mean, you've got some amazing furniture places on the Costa del Sol. But like you say, I'm here, Zara, Primal, as well as Mad About Furniture, Ideal Furniture, Marbella, and all the individual. I would suggest, mind, if you're moving to Spain from UK, you're not dead sure about this, but I'm sure you can get an interior designer at not a lot of cost. It's going to do all your budgeting for you, get all of these great ideas and inspirations, and then you'll see it, they'll render it as well, so you can see what it looks like in reality. I definitely think that's an option.
So actually, what I'm really hearing from you there is when it comes to inspiration, there's more options out there than we potentially even think about. Yes, you're completely right about the bespoke hotels, but the hotels, they're trying to be competitive. So usually they're staying up to date with their interior designs and their communal areas, right? So yeah, great inspiration there. And what better way, than to spend a Friday evening sipping on a nice cool glass of wine, watching Netflix and watching all of these amazing makeover programs. So yeah, I totally agree. There's loads of inspiration out there to get us going. I have a little bit more of a selfish question, if you don't mind kind of picking your brain. And this is probably a common concern when people move to Spain. Typically, they will have outdoor spaces, right? And often the outdoor spaces, they may not be so large, and you're trying to bring, I guess, the indoors, outdoors to kind of connect the space. So if I was to kind of put you on the spot now and ask for your advice, about maybe 2 things that you would recommend in that situation. You've got maybe a small terrace, but you'll be spending a lot of time out there because you'll be outdoors. How do you kind of utilize the size of that and use your space in the best way?
That is an interesting question. You hit the nail right on the head when you said about the outside coming in and vice versa. So it's almost that terrace is almost an extension of your interior living space. Possibly more important, given 6 to 8 months, you're going to be out there using it. I would try and, if you do soft neutral colours, for example, white. I mean, white's perfect for keeping the heat out, as I say, and there's lots of lovely variations on white. I think that you bring it together, but in your living room, you could have the same flooring. You have this lovely seated furnishings with lots of planting. Have outside as well, for example, the cactus trees, aloe vera plants. You would try and bring nature, the Spanish nature, across the whole piece.
Nice.
You'd have glass tops with lovely tree trunk bases, or you would use a lot of stone and natural pieces to bring it. So it's a cohesive one space. All you do is close your bifolds, don't you? Or when
that's it.
No, you have. Yeah.
I've seen that done. And I think people sometimes forget about that because they assume, well, it's outside, indoors, need to have different flooring. It's not the case. Particularly with, maybe a wood effect tile that can go the whole way out. It just creates that kind of continuity in the space, right? So automatically it feels bigger, I guess.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on that. I've seen that done really, really well. And it just gives that illusion that you've got a bit more space to play with, which is great. When it comes to trends and styles, I know that you really keep your finger on the pulse with this. What are you seeing at the moment around home decor trends connected to Spain?
Yeah, so modern Spanish design is really becoming the go-to style for old meets new. And that vintage and modern aesthetic. I mean, I love that, right? That's my favourite. If I could have it in my home, I certainly would. It creates this perfect middle ground between traditional and contemporary styling. So there's 2 styles I've picked out that I just adore, and they definitely seem to be trending, is the beachside minimalism, right? Love that style. So again, clean, cool white walls. And like I said, there's a variety of different whites and neutrals. They're perfect with some of the Mediterranean colour, the olive green. And like we've already discussed, so I'm not going to cover this again, but bringing the the living room is the outside in, right? Lots of planting, lots of natural woods, mixing materials and with Spanish references. So here's in the art room. And then there's the gorgeous ceramics and brass and marble, all contrasting. The textures are really important in this beachside movement. But also the Spanish style. And I'm talking hacienda type style.
Love it.
So that mixes well with the Moroccan vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You combine leather hides, woven fabrics again. Again, you can go more with stronger colours. Use the terracottas, use the olive greens, brick or stone flooring, solid wood, chunky furnishings. I suppose this it creates almost a desert-like effect, and what translates wonderfully with this is these vintage pieces. And then I like the woven textures, the big soft rugs that you hang on the walls, because that really softens any harshness you've got doing that. And then even if the light hits them, right, it doesn't matter, because them fading is just going to add so much more interest to them, so that you don't need to worry about the light. But yeah, definitely use what you have. Definitely use what you've collected, your favourite objects, because it'll all flow, Hope that helps.
I think those two themes that you mentioned there, the beachside minimalism and, the real hacienda vibe, I love those. But I really agree with what you say there in terms of don't be afraid to use random items. Funny you say that, because on Sunday we visited former clients of Warner's who had reformed and restored a beautiful villa, and they've got great taste, right? But they had some amazing woven type rope items on the walls, and they'd been purchased from a flea market. So you would be so surprised. And I thought, oh my God, that's going to be really expensive from Mason Demond or something, because it just added so much character. But it was, just a random find from a flea market. So I totally agree with you. We probably need to stay a little bit open-minded about what we might stumble across, right?
Yeah. It's all like, let's not copy. Let's just make sure your own life and your own inspirations are in your home.
That's so true. That's so true. I love that. Well, I've learned loads. So I think your 6 points were amazing. My key takeaway from that is really around breaking it down, taking one step at a time, because I can completely relate to the overwhelm that could happen when we don't do that. So super valuable points there. I also love your references around, bringing in Spanish references of nature into the room. So using the Spanish color schemes and using plants, and don't be afraid to be inspired by what's around us. But also the fact that there's so much inspiration out there, from Pinterest to, Netflix to magazines to hotels, that we can draw from when it really comes to approaching our styling and staging journey. And that final part around, let's be open-minded about the items that we bring in to create our space. So how amazing. And thank you so much for all your pearls of wisdom. I know that this will be super valuable for any listeners who have either just purchased their dream home in the sun, or, it's on their dream board that they're going to soon make that big purchase. So thank you, Jo.
It's an absolute pleasure. And I was super excited you invited me to talk to your listeners, Sandra. Amazing. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And Jo, for any of our listeners out there that may want to get in touch with you because they would like to tap into your wisdom and creativity and, potentially use your services for styling their home, how would they reach you? How would they find you?
So the website is a great place. That's www.jojohouse.co.uk. Nice and simple. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Jojo Staging, and email address info@jojohouse.co.uk. So nice, easy.
Amazing.
Contact, yeah.
For our listeners, we will put all of Jo's contact information in our show notes. So please do reference them if you want to get in touch. So Jo, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll speak to you very soon. Thank you so much for listening into today's episode on the Costa Property Podcast. Another fantastic episode learning about the highs and lows of relocating to the Costa del Sol from real people who have been through the journey themselves, and of course our wonderful experts. If you have been enjoying the show so far, remember to hit subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating or review.
We absolutely love hearing your thoughts. Please send any questions that you would like us to answer on the show to warner@wlcostaproperties.net, or you can pop us a message on our socials, which are in the show notes. Remember, you can also visit the website www.wlcostaproperties.net.
See you on the next episode, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.